So we begin by saying, hello, this is Demetrius Pericles. I'm here on behalf of the Order of AHEPA. We're talking some history. And in the AHEPA family, I'm honored to have the presence of Elizabeth Athanasakos. Elizabeth.
Athanasakos.
Yes, thank you. Past Grand President of the Daughters of Penelope, one of the oldest female civil rights groups on the entire planet.
Well, that sounds good.
Well, it was a Jeopardy question. That's how I know. So, but we're here today to talk about the history of AHEPA, but specifically, I mean, the entire AHEPA family, because the men and the women, they're interconnected. And how the chapters in Fort Lauderdale got their start, because, quite frankly, you were here at the very beginning.
Yes, I was.
So, how did you get involved with the order and the daughters, and we'll go from there.
I tell you, we had a lot of fun. Let's take it from there. I came down to Florida from New York, from Brooklyn, particularly, in 1957, in January of 1957. I had a cousin here by the name of Gus Dukas. He was a second cousin of mine. He owned a restaurant called Toppers, which is on East Sunrise Boulevard, where the Molinos is now. And it was a very, very popular restaurant. He opened it maybe about 3 years before I got down here, 3 or 4 years. So in the restaurant, he used to meet a lot of people, and a lot of Greek people. You know, the word would get around, and they would come into the restaurant. And when I came down for vacations prior to 57, I met some of the people here, like Duke Jordan, who is an attorney, and he was one of the 2 Greek attorneys that I know of, Greek background, that were in Fort Lauderdale at that time. And after I moved down here, they started having talks about, well, we need to form an AHEPA chapter. The men would say that. And then they would say, yes, and the Daughters of Penelope. And the reason for that was that people were moving into Broward County, and we also represented all of Broward County, and there was no church. And they said the only way, the best way to get the people of Greek descent together and to be able to organize a Greek Orthodox church in Broward County would be to form an AHEPA chapter and the Daughters chapter, which eventually happened. The AHEPA chapter was formed, I believe, in April 1957. And the Daughters, we started meeting sometime in August of that year, but we were actually chartered in December of 1957. So we've been around for a long time, but that was the reason. It was to get together, bring people together, because we didn't know who lived on the next block. I mean, we didn't know where people were. We knew through Gus in the restaurant. Toby Backus, who was from Hollywood, he worked in the real estate office of Irene Julene, which was on Sunrise Boulevard. And I used to tease Toby. Toby, how do you know people are coming before they even get off the train or the plane? Train mainly at that time. And he would laugh about it. I never did find out how he knew they were coming. But he was down here with his mother and father. They lived in Hollywood, and they were the main people. And of course, Tom Manicus was the main person with Leo Silva. They were here, and before everybody else, Gus Katsikas, who owned the Egonu restaurant. He and his wife, Frances, and they had the restaurant, and they used to meet a lot of people. And I had met a lot of people through them too, and we became very close. So uh, we once we got together, we started having some activities. We'd have a Halloween party, and we'd come in costume, if you could believe that. We were young then. We did all of these things.
So this was South Florida. Were there any Greek churches in the area?
And there were the closest Greek church was St. Catherine's in West Palm Beach, and of course down in Miami.
So in between there wasn't.
No, I belonged to the church in Miami, and that's where we were. There's nothing in between. When we had an emergency, Father Mekris would come up, and as time went on, if you want to hear any of the rest of this thing, as time went on, we we had a lot of pressure from the people in Hollywood to buy a piece of property that would be convenient for the people from Hollywood. So we were looking in the south end of Fort Lauderdale, along Riverland Road, along that area for property. And at that time, there was a lot of vacant property. And someone made a contact with the Food Fair, and Food Fair gave us a storefront on State Road 7. We were
Food Fair.
Food Fair.
Yes, we were talking about.
We somewhere around we formed the corporation in Fort Lauderdale, and used to do it through the judges, circuit judge. That's how you got incorporated in those days, and we got incorporated, and we were called the Greek Orthodox group. I have the name somewhere along the line. It didn't have the word. I don't think it had the name church in it, but we were, that was the beginning, and we started there about what we were going to do, and then the Tom Manicus or one of them got in touch. They got in touch with the Archbishop and Archbishop Yakovos, somewhere around, I believe, about 1960. We had a meeting at Tom Manicus's house regarding the possibility of having a church. I have a photograph I think I provided for everybody with the group that was there that day. And he told us that he would not sanction us to buy a used old church, that we would have to build our own church. So that's what got us to the point where we were out looking for property all over the place. I found some beautiful property on Oakland Park Boulevard, where the church is now, on the south side of the street on Oakland Park Boulevard, east of 16th Avenue.
Okay. And
there were a couple of big parcels there, but it was expensive. 5 acres for $75,000. I want to make you laugh. And they would tell me it was too much money. And of course, at that point, I didn't have any money either. I hadn't even gotten into practice yet. I passed the bar at 57 and didn't go into practice until 58.
From the time you started forming the Daughters and the AHEPAs, how did you find members? If nobody knew where, it can't just be the restaurant. How did you reach out to people?
Well, everybody knew somebody, through the restaurants, that I mentioned before, Toppers and the Egg and You restaurant. And everybody knew, like Tom Manicus was here for a while. They had a bowling alley, and they would meet some people, at least people who could bowl. And that's another story. And anyway, so from them, and then Francis Katsikis and I took the telephone book for Broward County, which was about this thick. There weren't very many people here. And we went through the book, and anything that sounded like a Greek name, we would jot down addresses, name, address, and telephone numbers, and we would end up calling these people. Well, we had people of all different colors and creeds, and and we had French people, we had Haitians, we had everybody on that list, but they were all very nice. And so we ended up with a list. There were a lot of people here that were in business, like um, the you have to excuse me, I can't remember some of the names, but it was Sam Harris who had restaurants here, you know, from the 50s and maybe the 40s, and he had the best restaurants in Broward County. They were all excellent, excellently run too. And so we had those people, the people who were in business, and like Gary Paxanos's parents and his family, they were in business. And, sooner or later we got to meet each other, and we we try to do a little bit of fundraising. So we would have a Halloween party. We would have regularly. We'd have maybe once a month. We'd have chicken dinner over at well, these places aren't here anymore, so I won't even mention them. But we had we would rent a place, and they would, the ones who could cook. I remember that all of us standing online at the grocery store because they had a sale on chicken, like 17 cents a pound or something or other like that. So we'd line up because they'd only allow you to get two. So in order to get more, we would line up, and each of us would buy the chickens, and everything. And we would laugh about it. We enjoyed doing this. We had a happy time. It was really a happy time. Our problems came later, and like everybody else has. But the whole thing in the basics for the having St. Demetrius in Greek Orthodox Church in Broward County was the AHEPA and the Daughters of Penelope. The formation of it, the whole foundation of the organization was all within the AHEPA family.
Do you have any idea how they came up with the name Saint Demetrius, or how they assigned
Yes.
it to Saint? You do?
Yes.
Please share.
I don't know if you want to hear it. Anyway, what we did, we would just fine. So we were planning to do this. So we looked out west, as I said earlier. Food Fair gave us a store. The Archbishop sent a retired or semi-retired priest down, a friend of his from Chicago, and sent him down. He was, of course, unattached. He was friends with this couple that lived down in Miami. He lived down in Miami, almost across from St. Church down there.
Saint Sophia.
Saint Sophia. And anyway, he we had a little problems, along the line. Because he was down there, I would call him and I said, well, someone's in the hospital. I'd get the calls. So-and-so is in the hospital, and the family would like you to come up to speak to them and to give her communion because she's very, very bad. I'll try to get there by next week, he would say to me. Well, I hang up. I'd call Father Mekris, and I want to tell you, that man was just so wonderful to us.
Who was Father Mekris?
Mekris, he was the priest in Miami.
Oh.
He was the priest for many, many years in Miami. The first priest they had there, when they had the old church, and then when they had the new church, he was there when they built the new church. And anyway, his daughter belongs to our church, I think. And anyway, Father Mekris was at the hospital within an hour to take care of the needs. He was our answer to everything. Anyway, with Food Fair, our people, whoever, we had people who could do the work. They fixed it inside like a church, put a little platform for this, and we would have church there. And we had chairs.
So this was like a storefront?
It was a storefront, yeah,
So,
and it was nice.
so
But
were
we
the
didn't have a name for a church yet.
no?
And but prior to having the food fair, there was a church on Riverland Road, not a Catholic church. It may have been a Methodist church. I'm really not sure what it was. We got the, excuse me, we got the use of the church every other week, and on a Saturday.
Mm.
Couldn't get it on Sunday, of course. So on a Saturday, and Father Mekris would come up, and we would have church services there. And that was another beginning. That was before we got food fair. Then we got the word from the Archbishop that we can't meet in another church. So that's when we went into the food fair business. Now, we were just fine there for for the time being. We had our our christenings there and other functions. And then later on, we found a piece of property, 5 acres off of Riverland Road, which is not a bad area. It's a
No,
good
it's
area,
actually rather nice.
and it had in the back. It was also on the canal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I think we paid $35,000 for it. We hired an architect, Kantianis, who was the architect of Greek Orthodox churches at that time, and he did a rendering. He did of a church that we would be building here. Mm-hmm. And if you want to see the church that we were going to build, you have to go to Manchester, New Hampshire, because they built it. Except they have a downstairs, and we could never have downstairs.
Not in Florida.
No. Well, in the meantime, we had a group of people, and I have to say, sometimes, maybe I should say it, when you have a rift in things, it's usually because a certain group of people don't have the money or don't want to contribute much to the church. So in order to avoid that, they cause a problem. And we ended up with our problems. But our problems were, sort of got out of hand for a while.
I never knew this about buying a property by Riverland Road.
Yes. Well, I mean, to show you what it was, and without even mentioning names, but the geniuses that ended up selling the property, they said, "Oh, well, we got even with those people because they didn't want us there, neighbors, or whatever it is." I don't know. I at that point I wasn't there. I wasn't involved. They said, "Oh, so we just kept the piece 2 feet or something or other along the waterway." Well, you only gave them 2 feet more. I mean, what were you going to do with the 2 feet? It doesn't make sense. To me, it didn't make sense. Why wouldn't you sell them the property on the water? It's more expensive, and you can get some money out of it. Anyway, I wasn't involved. I don't know how much they got for the property or anything like that. This group, this is before they sold the property, this group found this little church on 15th Avenue, the location where we are now, and it had an old house on the corner, on the south corner, and it had an old church in there that the parishioners, I think, built themselves, and that was it. And I asked, so they had a meeting in July of 1963.
So was the AHEPA still involved in all this?
We've always been involved. No, they weren't involved with the problems they had. They were not involved with that. Those people were not in the AHEPA. One may have been, maybe a couple were, but they were anti. But if you want me to mention names, I can mention some.
No, let's leave their names in the past.
But we had some people who really worked against us, and here we were doing everything for everybody's benefit. Anyway, they found this little church, and they could buy it for, I don't even know what it was. And they set this meeting up in July, could have been 1960, yeah, about that time, or 63. And the meeting was going to be at the church, and they were going to decide whether or not they were going to buy it, and etc. And the archbishop came. This is the same archbishop that sent us a letter that said he would never approve the buying of an old church, and we'd have to build a new one. Same archbishop. And his friend, the priest from Chicago, was there. And, well, he had it made. He didn't have to break his neck to do anything. He was very lazy anyway. You want his name? No. Okay. He had the church. Attached to the church, there was a door that went next door. There was a little office in there. So he had an office. There was a restroom. And then next door, there was another building that had a meeting room, let's say, or whatever it is. I don't know what else to call it. You had these people, they said, well, you could fit 200 people in there, for you couldn't get 50 people in that place. Anyway, this was the thing that they were going to do. And anyway, we were all there. We were all there. And the question came up to the archbishop that, well, didn't you tell us that we had to build a new church, etc. And plus the property was small. We asked one of them, who was very active with this group, is it big enough to accommodate the people and the parking for everybody? And of course the answer is no. Okay. And the archbishop says, because I guess the priest said, he didn't have to go out and fundraise or anything like that. I still have some very hard feelings. I can't help it. But not because I wanted to be a Riverland. I was okay with this property if I tell you what happened afterwards. So the archbishop says, this is what you're going to do today. Basically what he said, you're going to buy this property. So we all got up and we walked out.
Really?
We all got up and walked out. Absolutely. Of course, that really made him happy. Anyway, and he came back and he said to me, he says, you must be an instigator. And I said, I may be an instigator, but at least I'm instigating for the good. And that was it. That was our last conversation for a long period of time.
So
they bought the church. They bought the building. I belong down in Miami. They bought the building. I think that Dr. Xenakis did them a favor. He got somebody to move the house because it was an old house. They tried to save some of the remnants of the old day. And they moved the house and whatever they did with the church or whatever. Anyway, we did not belong for a long time. None of us.
But how did he get named Saint Demetrius?
That was from, okay, eventually, that they took the little hall that they said could seat 100 people or 200 people or whatever. They built the middle hall. That hall is in 3 parts.
Right.
They built the middle hall. And one of their donors, there were 2 main donors. They had the pictures up there. One of the main donors, they gave him the opportunity to name the church.
Oh.
And he named it St. Demetrius. We didn't name it. He named it. But anyway, that's how it got named. And anyway, I was not active in the church until maybe 1970, somewhere around 70. Father Nick came, and he's the one that got the 3rd building where the school is, upstairs, that 2-story building. He's the one who got that one built. Okay, so then all 3 buildings were joined. The Daughters of Penelope paid $1,000 for an accordion door for the initial hall, to close that hall all from the second one because they wanted it closed off. All of them are still standing.
Yes.
The original one is used mainly for storage, and during the festival they have
they refurbished that one.
Yeah.
The second one that you described is like a smaller hall for meetings, and they just refurbished the main banquet hall.
Right, but with the middle hall, as you said, that were refurbished, we had somebody who left an estate a lot of money in trust that went into refurbishing, doing the kitchen over and everything like that. Well, a lot of mistakes, but it got done. But all along now, when we got to the new church, the AHEPA and the Daughters of Penelope have always been involved. These other people, the one with the pipe that used to give instructions to the other guys to get up and talk against some things at the meetings.
I'm trying to picture a Greek who gives you instructions. It never occurred to me.
Well, you weren't around. And
so what were you doing in the 60s with the Daughters? I mean, at some point you became grand president. In between all this.
With the Daughters, we formed 1957. I served for a couple of years as president of our chapter. We were very good. We had 29 new members initiated on that day in December. 29 going through the initiation at the same time. That was a real story. And then we had a joint meeting with the Order of AHEPA and the other portion of this building upstairs. And the AHEPans was sworn in, and I was sworn in as president at that time. And I served a couple of years. Then I went on we went to all the conventions. We won all kinds of awards. We did right from the beginning. We were, top notch. We had people like Stella Betsis, who was right there. Besides, the 29 initiated people like myself, we have many who were living here that had been members of the Daughters elsewhere, and they reinstated and transferred into the new chapter. So we had more than 29 members to begin with. And Helen Manicus, Tom Manicus' wife, was one. Leo Silva's wife was another one. She was initiated. And we had others from Ohio, from everywhere that came in, from New York, that transferred in. And we had great times. When we got to the point where we said that Father Nick kept pushing us about, building a new church. So you have to understand, the property is not at this time what it was in 1950, 1960, 1965. It was not the same. 1970. Right. The buildings that were built that I refer to were on the initial property. Okay, they were on the south end. But we did not have enough property to build a new church. It was not possible. And so Father Nick talked to people who owned a house on the north end, and they made a deal. If we buy a house, another house, they would take that house and they give us this house. They made out, with it, but I guess we got enough property then to then build a church. But we could not build a church like we would have previously. We had to build a round church so it would fit onto this property. So they hired we hired found a builder, Duchel, who, for him, it was a challenge. He was a young man, and he had to, he had to work up a schedule of places that he built. He did a great job.
Mm.
And so they sent him up to a place in Virginia that had a round church, and so that he could go and see it. I've never seen that church, but he went up there to see it so he can get some idea of, what we're talking about. We also went down to the Miami church to measure, how much we needed on the altar,
Right.
how much we needed in front of the altar, and different things. Father Mekris helped us with that. And we were back there because of Father Nick. Father Nick brought me in. He brought everybody else in. And it was a tough fight, with some of these people. But it was well worth it, certainly well worth it. And with me, I wandered away. After I was president of the Daughters.
How did you go from president of the chapter to?
Yeah, well, I got on the district as treasurer. I don't know how I got treasurer, but I was on the district for 1 year as a treasurer. I think Helen Manicus had something to do with it because she had been a district governor elsewhere, I believe. But anyway, she sort of moved away to give me a chance. I wasn't looking to be on the chance. I was not a joiner, would you believe? When I was in New York, I didn't join anything. But anyway, I became district treasurer, and the following year, which would be 1960, I guess, I became secretary, district secretary, and the convention was in Miami Beach, and the Daughters were in one hotel, the Apples were in another hotel, but we were in Miami Beach. I became chairman of the meeting of the district of the national convention, and while we were there, we had elections, right? Okay, came time for the zone. I got nominated. I said, no, I'm a new member. I said, the one who should be there is our outgoing district governor. And I said to her, you have to take it. You're next in line. And she wouldn't go. She didn't want to do it. So I went on the National Lodge in 1960. That's 3.5 years after I joined the Daughters. I don't think anybody had a record like that except Mussolini's.
I had no idea.
Anyway, so I got on there in a year. I mean, I'm learning. I learned fast about the Daughters, but it was a wonderful group that I served with, a wonderful group. So in 1960, I went to the National Convention, and I was chairman of the National Convention and that was in Montreal. And man, that was really great. I'd go to bed at 5 o'clock in the morning and get up at 7 to get ready to have the meeting. And but we had a great time. And I don't know what's then little by little, I went from the governor to I was national secretary in 1963, and then in 1965, I got elected as grand president after Josie Chase. At this time, unfortunately, all those who served as grand presidents are deceased. So I am the senior grand president of the Daughters of Penelope.
Congratulations.
Is that good or bad? I mean, you outlast everybody else.
Well, it's a typical Greek example of being stubborn.
Yeah, right. Well, some of us have to stay around to take care of the rest of them.
So you're grand president in 1965, an interesting year. What happened during your tenure as grand president?
Well, I served with Kimon Dugas, and we had differences of opinion on things.
Cumin being the Supreme President?
Yes, he
Okay.
was Supreme President, but I don't. It was good. We had the AHEPA always had a banquet every other year,
Correct. The biennial.
biennial banquet, and we had a biennial banquet that year, and the speaker was Hubert Humphrey. He was vice president, I guess, at that time.
Okay.
And anyway, and I was told that the sons and maids presidents would not be allowed to speak. This is for the first time when we have a big speaker. Well, he's not going to speak all night. And they told me that I had 2 minutes to speak, something like 2 minutes, and that I would be speaking not only for the Daughters of Penelope, but for the sons and maids. So we got together and we prepared a speech that I gave, and the executive director of the AHEPA got the message. Anyway, it was okay. It was okay. I didn't embarrass you. I didn't embarrass you.
They still try and do the 2-minute limit during.
I know. It was.
Sometimes they succeed.
Yeah, I got it. I got it.
Right.
I didn't take the 2 minutes and 20 minutes. No, I had 2 minutes and 2 minutes. I wasn't going to embarrass myself or anybody else.
Those biennials are.
And and also during my year when I did the report, sometime back when I went to the first national convention after I became a member was in Boston, and we were to select a Woman of the Year, not necessarily a daughter of Penelope, okay? So we went out to lunch and we came back, and there is the sign that Adeline Geocaris, the past grand president, was now the Woman of the Year. Well, that sort of left me cold, okay, because she tried to control the daughters and not try to, like the HEP has its power. The daughters at one point didn't have that as much as the AHEPA, but it was there, and that left me cold. When I was grand president and I did my report, one of the things I said is that we have to reach out. It's not in these words, but we had to reach out to the community outside of the daughters, outside of the Greek organization, so that other people in this world would know that we exist. So I suggested that we select not a Woman of the Year, but that we select somebody outside and recognize them, and this would give us good PR for our, for us and everything. And that was part of my report. Eventually in 1970, finally, the grand president at that point decided this was a good idea and that we would have it. So we had this with Senator Margaret G. Smith, and we had her there. We had a medallion made in Greece of Penelope in gold, and we had a chain, and we had it like in the face. She could either wear it or look at it. We had her there. We had a Democrat and Republican senators speaking, in support of her and everything. It was a beautiful, beautiful affair. But like everything else, and I don't know why the people get jealous or whatever. Maybe because they didn't think of it, because they didn't do it. We had past grand presidents who boycotted the dinner. We had a dinner at the hotel. It was absolutely beautiful.
Where was this?
In Washington, and we had a beautiful dinner, and it's a shame that it wasn't They weren't hanging out of the rafters. We had all the top women who were in government at that time that were there, that came, and in addition to the ones who spoke, I mean, you would have been so proud of us. You would have taken more pictures than you had any kind of film. Anyway, it was just a beautiful, beautiful affair, but boycotted within the Daughters of Penelope. Unfortunately,
Did anyone notice they weren't there?
I did.
But did
Oh
it?
yes, yes. They made no bones about it.
Did the guests notice it?
They wouldn't know because they weren't members. They didn't know.
So as far as they were concerned,
They didn't know.
there was a beautiful turnout.
Yeah. The president's wife was there, and the supreme president's wife was there, and he showed up at the end. And but it was a wonderful affair. I don't think we've ever had one like that. We don't have dinners anymore. And anyway,
Wait, the which president's wives were there? The president?
in 1970, the AHEPA president.
Yeah.
The daughter's president, of course, was there.
Yes. So
Anyway,
their loss?
It was their loss.
I have seen this because
It's so petty.
We go to every Supreme Convention usually has, well, always has an interesting location. And I particularly remember Disney World. People were complaining, oh, there won't be time to do this. And then we go there, get treated like royalty. We have an excellent time. Everyone has a good time. The parties are great.
Yeah.
After the fact, oh, it was a good time. Oh, well, you lost out.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. It's a shame. I don't know why people get so jealous or what it is, but hey, listen, these are all important people. You've never met them before. Come and meet them.
I remember a few years back, one of the, there was like 1,000 people at the biennial. It was, Ike Goulas had been instrumental in setting it up, getting some sponsorship so we could have a proper one. We had senators.
You remember what year it was? No. Okay.
It would have to be like around 2006 or 7.
I don't know. Probably it wasn't there.
It was at the Watergate. So it's one of the few places that can have a big crowd like that. That's always a problem for us on Supreme Conventions, because you say, oh, we need like 1,000 people. Oh, we're not that big. Okay. Next.
Well, I'm trying to think of whether I covered the thing about the grand presidency.
Well, you know what?
And yes.
I mean, one of the things, okay, I know the ladies and the men formed the chapters so they could make a local church. But, I mean, and you found people just by word of mouth or cold calling them out of the phone book. For you kids, that's a book with just phone numbers, because nowadays the phone book doesn't exist.
No, it doesn't. And besides that, it's kind of thick now. Wasn't where we got it, and that's just part of the county. But yes, we came a long way from there. We bought. I told you we traded property. We bought property and traded, and we got that extra land for that. Well, I said, and anyway, I said, look, we don't have enough property here to accommodate parking or anything. I talked to the one who was pushing for that location. I said, do we have enough property for parking? No, we don't. Okay, why? So there was property from the where we were all the way to the corner. You remember where the gas station is, the Shell station that's still there on Sunrise Boulevard and 15th Avenue. Behind that, there was a 2-story building. There might have been apartments in there or something. The rest of the property, when you cross the street, there were little houses along there, not the condo that's there now.
Right.
I said, why don't we buy those buildings? What are we going to use it for? Use it for a school. I don't know what you're going to use it for, but we don't have enough property. We had one of our friends, neighbors, members, knew the person who had the duplex next to the church. Says, we can arrange it. He'll, sell us the property. Or we don't need it. This is the we don't need it are the ones who, So they didn't buy it. They eventually bought it. Cost them a hell of a lot more money.
Right.
We had a building. We did buy a building next to us on 15th Avenue, and we had rented it for a little bit, but we got rid of them, and we bought that. The people next to that, there's a apartment that just a small building that has rentals in it, and then there was another house, a small house. Those people pleaded with us. And anyway, Gassettis and myself, Chris Gassettis and I were in charge of something or other. They pleaded with us. They offered us money. They offered us silverware. They offered us, all kinds of things to get the church to buy that property. We go back to them. We don't need it. Okay? So they didn't buy the property.
Good luck buying it now.
Yeah. Anyway, well, that little apartment building is still there. Well, what happened was somebody came in there. They bought that building, put a condo in there. Now try and buy it. Now try and buy it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we went through all of this. Oh, we don't need it. It's the same people, the anti-people. There were times when we finally got the plans for the new church and everything. There was some tough negotiation, some changes, like he had the ladies' room on one side and the men's room on the other side. Well, you can't do that. So they had to switch it because the men's room, the boys in the, could go through the men's room and come out on the other side, near the
to go
altar.
into the altar.
And the ladies' room would be here, and there'd be a little room there. We thought maybe a bride's room or whatever, but they use it for the little children. It's more logical. It's logic. A lot of it is logic. And so we did all of that, and he told us where columns were. The AHEPA pledged $15,000 for the column. That we didn't go according to costs. We went according to what can you give. $15,000 for the column to the left of the altar. The Daughters of Penelope, $15,000 to the right of the altar. And so that was our initial dig. And we went around. Do
you remember what years that was?
Well, the church was built 1980, right?
I think 80,
so. Something like that. Before, when we tore down the old church, we have pictures of that. We used the hall, and then we had the 3 halls. We used the hall as for church. Okay. So the church cost us like $1.2 million. You couldn't touch that today.
No.
With that thing. And we did, we did a great job. Shoduses were involved. Chris Gassettis. I hate to mention names because I'm going to forget all of them. And the daughters, Harry Carrot. We couldn't do anything without Harry Carrot. Duke Jordan wasn't so involved in that. He was involved in our getting together to begin with. And
he was the first president of the AHEPA chapter.
Duke.
Yes.
Yeah, he Duke. And I don't know what made him not be. He had a sister and 2 brothers. He had a brother who was a doctor and another one who was a dentist. and his father was here. I don't know about his mother, but his father died. Uh, the sister had a son who had been in the Marines, and also a daughter. The daughter was more active here. Um, what else? That's them. Uh, that's the way. Anyway, uh, but in theirs, it was all a HEPA family that was doing all of this, doing the fundraisers and everything like that. It was all a HEPA family.
Seems everybody was dedicated to making the community better.
Better, absolutely better. We wanted to make it better. We didn't. We had the little church. Okay, besides the termites in there. But
I remember that.
we got these big chandeliers. I don't know, Father Nick got somebody to put them up there, and um, we had a very active person who really did a lot of work. Um, anyway, they said the church is too small for us. Well, we got more people coming. Well, maybe we can expand the church. Um, let's find out. So I got the uh, architect, the architect, the one who was doing my house or something, or I don't know, or my office building. The designer. So I had him come over with whoever to tell us what it would cost if we went out a little bit or went that way, whichever way it was, to add some more seats. And by the time he got through, it was over $500,000 just to do it. And he says, when you get all through, he says, you're going to have an old building. And remember, we're talking years ago, we're talking about this in the 70s when things were a lot cheaper than they are today. Okay? So that was a lot of money. So that was what instigated building a new church. Now, we built out our church, but the Hollywood people were not happy. They wanted a church down there, and they bought an old synagogue, I think it was, where they still have it.
Right, St. George.
We helped them. Our community helped them. We gave them, at that point, I think maybe $10,000-$15,000 to get started. That was a lot of money. And
this was in the 70s?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was. I may be off on the dates. And then when they wanted to build a church up in Boca Raton, they were talking about our church. We also gave them money too. I mean, we were good. We were happy to have them because we couldn't handle these people from the whole county, and it wasn't fair. We were in one spot. There's also we were hoping they would have a church out in the west area of Broward County, because it's and now down in Pembroke Pines, it's hard for those people to come in.
Right.
Yeah, but they became another church. It wasn't a Greek church; it was an Orthodox church, and some of those people belonged to our church, but they have their own church now. So I mean, we were very helpful to all of them. But it took a giant thing for us to put it together, to look at things, to look at icons, and look at the lighting. What about the acoustics in the place? That was another thing that we were concerned about. And then they talked about putting metal roofing on it. The metal roofing at that time was not the same as it is today, but they had metal roofing. But we opted, good or bad, to put a tile, but we did the better tile.
Right, the blue ceramic. I remember that.
Yeah, and we did it in blue. And I miss that blue color. That really made us stand out.
Yes, it did.
It really made us stand out.
The thing that I found fascinating, because I read a newspaper article about the church, because it was a poured concrete dome, and the only other place they used that exact same technique was the old TWA terminal at JFK Airport in New York.
Yeah.
So we were one of two buildings on the eastern seaboard with a poured concrete
Well,
dome.
we had the plans for the church, you know, whatever it is. So we went and we spoke to a group. I didn't go alone. I mean, I was just one person in this thing, you know. Paul showed us his father, uh, who had some experience in this thing, and said us. I mean, we would go and interview these contractors, and we had one contractor said, "Well, you know that roof, this, you know, to do that kind of a roof, we have to go to France." They were going to go to France to get the plans to build the roof. I'm telling you what we went through. So we
Hmm.
all thanked them out of the place. That's how we ended up with Michelle.
Wow. So,
He went. Michelle didn't do the plans. Somebody else did the plans.
but I remember the Daughters in the AHEPA were more than just the church. It was, there were dances. It was more than social functions.
Oh yeah,
You guys, everybody was active with local politics.
we were.
Not politicians, the
Yes.
politics of what was going on a national level. As Grand Governor, you obviously had to have some entanglements as far as issues that were of concern.
Oh yes. Well, I had my own issues outside.
Right,
I was
right.
very active in the Equal Rights Amendment
Hmm.
and trying to get that passed. I and that brought me up. I was very active in so many things. I traveled all over the country. I with the Daughters of Penelope, with the Business of Professional Women's Clubs. I was national president of that in 1990, 91. I I was also on the President's Commission on the Observance of International Women's Year,
Mm.
and that was 1974. I think we were 74 or 75. We were appointed by uh, President Ford,
Mm.
and anyway, I was on there, and then I became the presiding officer, which was a real experience. And
Really.
a real experience.
How is it an experience?
Well, it was different. We Bella, while we were on this initial commission, we were to prepare a report. You know, you always have to prepare a report for a government, right? So uh, we had a lot of committees going and a lot of hearings where we listened to people, etc. And the report came out. And on this day, we presented the report to President Ford. The existing uh, presiding officer had agreed that she would only take it for a year. She couldn't do beyond that. So when she went out of office, President Ford appointed me to be the presiding officer. So I was in the Oval Room with them. I mean, I was there,
Yeah.
Oval Room, and we went out the door from the Oval Room, you know, to hail to the chief, etc. I mean, you know, it gives you kind of thrill. He's very nice. And we went out from there and walked up to the platform where we were, and there were the three of us on the platform, and he accepted the report from the presiding officer and then introduced me. And of course, last name, he had a little problem with it, and introduced me as the new presiding officer. Unfortunately, he lost the election to Carter, you know, later that year. But but before we went out of office, we did everything. Bella Abzug had passed why we were continuing after that year because it was only supposed to be a year. Bella Abzug had a bill passed that would continue the commission until we had a national conference of all the states and territories of the United States.
Hmm.
So that's the 50 states plus the territories. So I think there might have been around 56 meetings. ending with a national conference of women, and which we had already, we did all the plannings. We, at that time, Houston was the place, not Dallas, but Houston. So the meeting was going to be in Houston because all the planes went in there. It would be easy to get to. We picked the hotels. We found the place where it was going to be. We had all of these meetings, and we set up the committees in all of these 56 places and appointed people on them. And I went, the first one I went to, I'm in Fort Lauderdale. Which one do you think I get sent to? Hawaii. So I went to Hawaii.
Well,
and first thing I found when they threw the flowers over me, by the time I got to the hotel, I was really sick. I'm allergic to those little white flowers, and they have a very strong smell. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't. I said, I don't get sick. Anyway, that was it. So we had met some wonderful people there. We had the meetings at a school, and they had an auditorium there where we were going to have the indoor meeting. They had a big area in front of the front door of the school, large grassy area. They had some other buildings. So that we had it all planned. It was all great. And what happens was we had our first meeting where we, not at the school, but where we were at this place. 3,000 Mormon women showed up with 4 men telling them what to do. It sounds silly, but it's true.
And what were they doing there?
They were there, signed up as delegates to this meeting. See, if you came in and you signed up, you became, you became part of the meeting and you could vote.
Okay.
Okay. Which we didn't expect them because they didn't pre-sign like we had requested. They didn't even tell us. We didn't know. They did the surprise. They came, and the men would tell them what to do. Most of them, I think, were pregnant. A lot of them, I thought, well, they're going to have a baby here. We better be careful. We better be ready for everything. Some of them said afterwards, toward the end of it, they said they were told that they were going to find some terrible people there and everything. And they were so pleasantly surprised to see everybody because we were very helpful to them and everything. We didn't have anything against them. So when it was time to have the meeting in the thing, of course there wasn't enough room. They couldn't fit 4,000 people in there. So we had to put the microphone on the steps of the place. We had the meeting outside. And we had an agenda, certain topics to do. And the one who was the Hawaiian chairperson said, do we have to take them in the order that they're there? I said, no, as long as we, get a vote on what it is so we know what people want. Okay, so they took them out of order the way they wanted it. The Mormon women were given notes. On number 1, you do this. On number 2, you do this. On number 4, you do that. So they didn't know what those stood for. So they would say, we're going to discuss the Equal Rights Amendment. Let's put that up. So this one gets up, and because she has this number, and starts talking, but she's not talking about that. She's talking about whatever number she had, and it didn't have anything to do with that. So she'd be ruled out of order, which she was out of order. I mean, they weren't told to think about this thing. They were just told, when this number comes up, you do this, and that was it.
No different than someone being handed a voter cue card.
It's a sad story because what they told us, what we found out later, they had buses to take them back to where, back home, wherever they would be. Before they would get on the bus, they had to swear that they voted the way they were supposed to vote.
Hmm.
Or they wouldn't let them on the bus. So, I mean, it's a sad story when you see the control over people that are told what to do, and they're not using their own abilities. And these people, they look fine, they look smart, they did everything. It was like the Stepford Wives, the movie that came out. It was total control of these people, and whatever these men told them, that's what they were supposed to do. And we felt real bad for them. But anyway, that was the story in Hawaii. I went everywhere. I was in Missouri. The one in Florida was something else also.
Were?
The,
I believe the
that
word is still are.
well, yeah, we had it in Orlando, and that was the time that Graham, wasn't he the governor at that time? And he was going around doing different jobs at different places. No, maybe not.
I don't.
He carried my luggage, and I didn't realize it was him until after he carried the luggage. Anyway, it's a lot of fun. There's one story and at least a dozen other stories.
But it seems to me with all the names you keep recalling, you made a lot of friends over the years, a lot of good connections over the years, and
I did, I did, and with especially with Barbara Bush. I somehow or other, I don't know, Barbara, when he was running for the presidency.
You're talking Herbert Walker Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush.
Yeah.
So
and when he was running for the presidency, he came to Fort Lauderdale, and somehow or other, I was asked to escort Barbara Bush. He didn't come; she came. Escort Barbara Bush to her speaking engagements. Okay, I mean, I didn't know how. That's another story. But anyway, I escorted. I got to know her a little bit better. But I had met her and him in China in 1974, 75 when I was there. I went a year after the then president had gone there, and Bush was he wasn't the ambassador. We didn't have an ambassador, but he was the representative of the United States there, and it was right next door to the Greek one, I guess. We went to the group I was with. One of the women was the wife of one of the Supreme Court justices. So we got invited to go to the home. So we went to the home, and we met George and Barbara Bush. Okay, real down to earth. So he made me a screwdriver with orange soda. Don't ever have it.
Noted.
Anyway, they were so nice to us and showed us the house and everything. We had good talk. He told us what it was like, life living there, with the Chinese people, and they did everything, invited them in and out, but they never got invited, out to any place. It was, a whole different ball game. The China I went to was the old China, not the new China, and the old buildings and everything. And anyway, so I got to know them then. Not that we were great pals, but we got to know each other. So when I escorted her around and everything, and then later on when I was vice president of the Business of Professional Women's Club, they were in. I must have been president before. I get mixed up on my days of presidencies, I'll tell you. So you have to excuse me on this. When I was president or where I was. When we had a meeting, in Washington, D.C., and we had That's when I met Biden also, Senator. And anyway, we had a meeting up in the um, in the building. It was, you call it the White House, but the West Building. And she came to speak there, and she spoke to our then president, and I was there, and since I had met her, and so she whispered, well, she was greeting. She remembered me, and and she said, I said, well, I'm going to be following her as president of BPW afterwards. So she says, good. Anyway, that was good. She was great. I loved her because she always say things as they were. She didn't mince words, and I guess I didn't either. And then later on, when he came to a meeting one time, and the BPW, Business Professional Women's Club, they used to use a red purse, meaning that women made less money than the men did. So the red purse became an emblem during one of the years. And he came to the meeting. I happened to be having a red purse. I think that Mona Menezes gave me the purse.
Okay.
And I had the red purse because it was BPW. And they wanted to give him something. They decided they'd give him a red purse. So I had to go empty my purse, clean out my purse. And they presented him with the purse. Of course, he felt good walking out with a red purse. So anyway, that was my involvement there.
So
now we go back to the church.
Let's go back to the church.
All right.
So we've built a new church.
We built a new church. We
tore down the old church.
And then we had to buy the properties that we bought. I sat there. This guy was on the board, and I said to him, if we bought all of the property all the way down to the corner, would we have enough parking for this church? No. We caught him on something else too, trying to get a kickback on something, on the other church that we were going to build. A lot of things, You think people are honest? What are you trying to make money off the church? I mean, were they donating money? What are you trying to do? We gave all of our services as attorneys, Harry Carrot, all the work, all of it. None of us got paid for anything like that until the later crowd came in. They got paid. Okay?
Okay.
What else can I tell you? So we have the church.
The daughters are still going. How did they get the name Narcissus Chapter?
Well, you had a vote on names.
Right.
And they gave us a list of names from the headquarters or something or other like that. Or you had to look through a book or whatever it is. And we had several names on the thing, and they voted the Narcissus. We like ourselves. What am I going to tell you? And we acted that way when we first got going. We were out to win everything.
The ladies still do.
They do. They were. Stella Betsis used to write the best reports for a long time, and we'd always win when she did it. Anyway, we had a lot of fun. That's the whole thing. You've got to enjoy what you're doing. You have to be friends with people. You got to be together. That's why it really, when I think back and think about the problems that we had one time when we were between priests, I think, and they had, Father Mekris was coming up to do the service for us. And they locked the church. They wouldn't let Father Mekris in to perform the services. They, meaning the anti-group. And anyway. And they try to run it a lot like the politics as you refer to as the AHEPA. It doesn't work.
No.
It didn't work. We were lasting people, and We did everything. All the decorations inside, it's all AHEPA and Daughters of Penelope. It's at the planning and everything like that.
But what I've noticed over the long haul, the people who cared and the people who became friends, they stuck around.
Yeah.
The naysayers or whatever, they come, they go, they fade away. But the friendships seem to last.
Yeah. Unfortunately, during the march of time, we have lost so many, so many. I told you I looked at that photograph with that meeting with the Archbishop and all of these people that were there. And they asked me who these people were, and I went down, named all these people. When I got all through, I said, I'm the only one still living. They're all gone. I don't care if some of them were younger or anything like that. But it's sad. It's sad. All these people who were around, like Duke Jordan, he passed away how many years ago? And he died on my birthday. Anyway.
I had met him on more than a few occasions. He was a character in his own right.
Oh, yeah. He used to go to Spain every year.
I saw the inside of his office.
Yeah. He used to go to Spain every year. And but he was very good with his family, very close to his family and everything. And he did get married. Didn't work out. But he had a close friend at the end. Anyway, there's a lot of history with me. Well, we would get together. You could get places, go from one place to the other in this whole county and Palm Beach County and Miami. I mean, it was nothing to go down to Miami. We would go down to Miami and go to their festivals, to go to their dances. They would come up to ours. We would go up to West Palm Beach. I mean, we were everywhere. We went to Greek restaurants and wherever they were, as long as we found one. And then when we got a hold of Sasha, and he was playing somewhere, I don't remember where, but somewhere in Palm Beach County, I guess, southern part. And we went there and we would dance. We'd all get together and we would go places and we pay our own way and everything like that, but we had a good time. Nick and Helen Christos, they're still here. She's Tom Manicus's daughter. And anyway, we had a great time.
So what would you say to somebody, just say starting out with the AHEPA or just starting out with the Daughters, the new blood?
The new blood? Oh.
Looking back and looking forward, because we're approaching 100 years the upcoming year for the AHEPAs. The Daughters are not far behind with their centennial.
Well, I would say this, that a lot of the things that we faced when we organized are still present. We're still there. We're all helping other women. We went out of our way. The Daughters of Penelope is not the Philhellenes. What they have to remember, we are not a church group. We build the churches, but we're not a recognized group of the church. The Philhellenes is. Philhellenes, to help the needy. Okay, we as daughters were the arm of the Greek people reaching out of our community to let the rest of the world know that Greek people are wonderful, that we do a lot of good things for everybody. We were very active early on with the Easter Seal. The Easter Seal was the charity that was down here. In fact, some of our members are in the original brochures of the Easter Seal in Broward County. And so we were very active with the Easter Seal group. We were initially, I got friends with Edie Green. Edie Green did the women's edition of the the Fort Lauderdale paper. And she was great. Every year she had a meeting at the Governor's Club Hotel, because they had the big ballroom. She had a meeting of the women there, presidents of groups and things like that, and churches and things like everything. And she would bring all the women together.
Mm.
And she was great. And she was an abused woman in her marriage. She had a lot of unhappiness. She was the one who started Women in Distress.
Mm.
Okay, and who helped her a lot? The Daughters of Penelope. They got an old house donated to them on Sister Boulevard, and well, it needed work. Needed some help with the roof. We helped with the roof. We needed a washing machine. We helped with the washing machine. We were there. Whenever she needed help, we were there. So we were there at the beginnings of everything. When they wanted to buy, they wanted to, women in distress, they have an apartment where they help women, that are being abused and they have to get away, and they don't want the husband to know where they are. So they would take them and they put them in these apartments. They wanted to get an apartment. This was a little later in Wilton Manors. So we got a group. We went to Wilton Manors to speak in favor of them doing it, because they were turned down. They were wrong. They ended up with the children in distress, but they never did the women in distress.
They changed it, named the Family and Children in Distress or something.
Right. But initially, not that particular place, but they were going to buy an apartment building, I guess, and to have women in distress, and they turned it down. And anyway, so we were there at the beginning. We always helped them. We always gave them. We would collect clothing. We would collect.
So we were talking about election memories.
Yes.
And the times you may or may not have had opposition running for an office in the Daughters.
Right. It's just that when we were elected in 1960, we went to Washington to.
Let's try this again. Okay.
We went to Washington, and to go to the headquarters to find out what was going on, because when in 1960, when we were at the convention in Miami Beach, every year we have a yearbook that gives you all the reports from everybody and the financial situation of the Daughters of Penelope for each chapter, how many members, and money, you know how it goes. Well, we were in Miami Beach and we kept waiting for the reports, the books to come. They never came. We asked the grand president, where are they? Well, they're coming. And they never came. We asked the executive director that we had, and oh yeah, they're coming. They never came. Anyway, during the whole thing, so we got telegrams from the executive director, deputy secretary, and from her welcome us on board, this terrific thing that we're doing. And so she made arrangements for us to be at the hotel in Washington, and we got there, and I was very lucky. I shared a room with the grand president. I didn't know anything. 3.5-year member. Anyway, we went to the headquarters. What we found, we made an oath. The 5 of us made an oath to each other that we would not make this a big deal, that we would not reveal it to the Daughters of Penelope, because it would be detrimental to the organization.
That the book wasn't.
Not only that the book wasn't, but why wasn't it done? Okay. We found out that the executive secretary that was there had 2 phones. One was the daughter's phone, and the other was another phone for herself. She
And
was running another business out of the Daughters of Penelope headquarters, which would have really sold us down the river.
this is back in the 60s. In
1960. And we went to the printer, find out why he didn't print the book. He never got the material from the headquarters. Okay. We were all assigned to do things to get to the bottom of this whole thing. We found out that the executive secretary was an alcoholic. She had a beach chair in the office there where she would take her naps. The mail that came in with all the checks, they were all in the drawers of the desk there. They were all over the place. Nothing had been cashed. Nothing had been noted in any of the records. No records were ever brought up to date. Nothing. And this was the Daughters of Penelope. We went to the printer, ready to kill the printer, and the printer never got the material. How could he get it? The checks were never deposited. There was never any kind of record. And I could see us walking down the street. We're on the road, we're walking down the street. I said, we're just like the Never on Sunday is coming down. But that's really what the business was about. Okay? And we stayed at the hotel that had a reputation. We found out later that the call business was in that hotel. We had a beautiful suite, everything. I don't know whether we paid for it or not. But that was it. But we decided that we were not going to make it public. We were upset about it because the one who was grand president at that time never said anything, never apologized. All she talked about was, I went to this place in Alabama, they loved me there. I went to this place, oh, they loved me there. And that was it. That was the whole.
What happened to the secretary?
Well, she was no longer our secretary.
Oh.
She went, boom. Who ran the office was Kay Brazos from California and Mary Capsis from Louisiana and Josie Chase. The three of them, I would entertain them. Of course, I had to go through records of that. And they went through all the records, got all the checks, wrote all these letters to the different chapters. If the check was stale, they would ask them to send a new check in, and etc. And then when they got the new checks in, they deposited them. They brought the records up to date, and they put the records together. They did all of that work in the first year of Kay Brazos' presidency. Okay? And but we didn't go and tell people. We didn't go to a convention and tell them what was there. And it irked me when that one would put her nose around, about anybody else, and when she never did anything. Never followed up. And that was the beginning of it thing. And that was 1960. In 61, I was the chairman
of the convention.
Of the convention in Montreal. And we were okay there. This same, I must have my dates mixed up a little bit. My dates mixed up.
Did you ever have opposition when you ran for grand president?
Yes. I always had. I always had. I had opposition. We were running. I don't know which way we were running, but we was Kay Brazos' second year, so it would have to be 61. And she was running for a second year. And we all said that we want Kay to be reelected even if we lost. How's that for a group?
Okay, explain that one.
Well, we were willing not to run, for her to run. If it meant that if we didn't run, she could get elected. We were just so supportive of her. And she had opposition. They went all the way down the line. Nobody had opposition until they got to me. and and the same one was Chicago past grand president. So, competition is good, she said.
Mm.
What about all these other people? And she put her friend up against me. That friend was the one that she had up for the Penelope of the Year in Montreal. Oh God, to be chairman and have them pull all this stuff on you is something awful, because they were trying to pull everything on me. She got her to be Penelope of the Year, and Kay Bratsis would say, tell us about her. What is her background? What good has she done that she's Penelope of the Year? Very innocent question, right? And he said, well, a lot of things. Tell us, would you please read the thing? Well, there's nothing there. I mean, the woman hadn't done anything, and she was a mother, I guess. I don't know what it was. And I'm up there, I'm chairing. I'm hysterical laughing. I couldn't stop laughing because it was so funny. You had to watch the two of them, one's here, one's there.
How many women were in the room at the time?
Well, it was a full convention. It was our convention. I don't know how many we had, but I mean, it was really funny. We had a parliamentarian there. They don't have parliamentarians at that time in Canada, so we had a law student, and I pulled her aside. I said, "Now, I said, don't be scared about these people." I said, "What you do, how you get away with being parliamentarian, just get up there and say it like you really mean it. Like you really mean it, and it'll be okay." So she did. She was very good. Cute young woman. And so anyway, that was it. So when we got to the second year of Kay's running, competition was good, and I had that Penelope of the Year running against me.
Right.
Okay. And so anyway, they were all reelected. The one who was from Minnesota didn't not run again. So Kay was in there for 2 years, and then in 1963, Mary Kapsis was elected, and then after that, Josie Chase in 1964, and I was elected in 1965 in Greece. That's another experience.
Oh, I remember the last Greek, the 2008 convention. That for me, that was an experience.
Yeah.
I can only imagine in 1965.
Oh God, they had we were at the Hilton, and they had Metaxa had a display of their liqueurs and the ouzels and down there. Well, these people hit the place. They took everything.
I remember hearing stories. They were told, "We have free samples for everybody. Help yourself."
Yeah, no, they didn't say that.
Oh, they didn't.
No, they didn't say that, but they went anyway. And I mean, there were thousands of people there. Unbelievable. And they had something at the embassy, the U.S. embassy, and they went there and they wiped out the food in no time at all. But I couldn't eat the food over there. I lost, I think, 15 pounds, and I was thin.
Did you have opposition at that time?
No. So anyway, everything has its fun time. I might have but when you think back, I said I'd never stay at the Hilton again. You know what kept me living over there, surviving, was at the Hilton at midnight. And they had a cocktail lounge up on the top room, and it was nice. We'd go up there at night. At midnight, they would come out with flaming swords and everything. You want to see what they're going to. It's spaghetti. So I lived on spaghetti.
Yeah, that's what Greece is known for. Their fine spaghetti.
Yeah, spaghetti. midnight. I mean, but the the food, to me, it had a terrible smell to it, and I just would just lift it, just smell. I could not eat it. We sat with mixed people, U.S. people and Greek people, and they would eat the food like it was going out of style. I would lift it up, and I could not put it in my mouth, so I had bread and butter for dinner. I mean, it was terrible. And one time, they served us chicken at a luncheon. There was chicken that was left over the night before and not refrigerated. It was bad. So I'm not going to the Hilton again.
I think they've
They've changed.
updated. I think they've
changed.
updated.
Yeah, they updated it, and my cousins made me go there with them, and we had something to eat, and it was very good. But they had changed the whole place. It didn't look the same.
Oh yeah, it changes every decade or so.
Yeah,
But
it was funny.
so,
We had a lot of fun.
when was the last convention you went to?
The last convention.
Did you go to Orlando? You went to Orlando.
Yeah, Orlando.
So
That's where I had the scooter. We were at the beach club.
Mm-hmm.
That was a great place. I loved that beach club, and I liked the way that you could get to the different places. It was
Disney World Beach Club.
Yeah.
We're going back next year for the.
We're not going to the yacht
No,
club.
no. We're going. They refurbished the Coronado.
Mm-hmm.
That's another resort like the beach club.
Well, we were supposed to go there this year for the district convention, weren't we?
No. The district convention is in Silver Springs, I believe.
No, Mount Dora.
Mount Dora. Thank you.
You're welcome. Last year. It was supposed to be there last year.
Right.
We didn't have it.
Right, 2021 because of
reasons. We were supposed to be at the Coronado.
Yeah. We didn't, my wife and I didn't cancel our reservations. We went anyways. But they moved us because they put the basketball players, they closed that resort for only the basketball players.
Mm-hmm.
So they moved us to another resort.
So who was the yacht club?
Yeah. No, it was closed.
Yeah.
But that's all right. We looked at it. It looks beautiful from the outside. Hello, we're supposed to come and stay.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to next year. It's going to be neat.
Well, it can't be like this year. This year was terrible. So a year out of our lives. A year out of our lives. And then when you're asked to stay home. I didn't stay home. I came here to the office every day, every weekday. I was here, sometimes over the weekend, and I was here, but there's nobody to talk to. I don't see anybody, so I don't wear the mask. I don't see anybody. Nobody comes in. That phone doesn't ring. Today it rang for the whole week.
Yeah, well, it's because we're doing stuff.
But it does something to your brain. I mean, I could feel it in myself. Even though I was here, it was still not the same. It was not the same.
Yeah.
Because I'm not practicing, like I used to. But I still did work. I still did whatever I did.
The one good thing out of all this, it could be the two-edged sword, is the teleconferencing. The video conferencing has really taken off.
I know, but
it's not the same as in person.
No. You see, I belong to the Zonta Club of Greater Deerfield Beach. In fact, I served as president for 2 years. Can you imagine? They were looking for a young person, so I became president. Anyway, I served 2 years. I enjoyed it. They all came in and helped. I was kind of innovative with them, and it was good. I almost became president again now. I said, "Oh, I don't think so."
Do you remember at St. Demetrius, they had a brother by the name of Gus Janulis?
Yeah.
When he was 100, he was still younger than some of our members.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of those situations.
I used to go to their anniversary parties, and and seeing him and his wife and dancing, and being and they were very good friends of ours, very very good friends of ours. I miss these people. I tell you, they was they were so good, and everybody was together, and it was great happiness, and it was a really sad day when he passed away. Sad day. But it's sad. What are you gonna do? Yeah, he was about 103, I think, when he passed away. And Leo Silva was another good guy, and they were, because he had some money. Some of these people were so mean to him. They would try to beat him and keep him off the board, the votes. And it breaks your heart to think about something like that. Leo died about a week after we had that meeting with the Archbishop. He had an aneurysm. He was so upset, over what happened with the Archbishop and forcing us to buy this, going back on his word and forcing us to buy the old property and etc. And he was so upset. I guess his blood pressure got to be so that the aneurysm burst and he died.
Well, it seems to me that the best thing AHEPA built, or the AHEPA family, I should say correctly, was not the church, but the relationships.
Yes, because the relationships have been lasting. Lasting. I see people in church. I knew your grandfather. Oh, I knew your grandparents. And
have you ever been to a Supreme Convention, haven't seen the person in a year? After 5 minutes, it's like you never left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we go to the conventions, is to see these people from around the country, from around the world, really, because that you haven't seen for all that period of time. And
I've met people for the first time, and it's like their family I've known forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The good family and the bad family.
Yeah. You might be able. I was sitting next to somebody, my very first convention, didn't know anything. And we're just chatting for 10, 15 minutes. Finally, he asks me, "What's your name? What do you do for a living?" And then I ask him the same. He tells me, "Oh, I'm a federal judge." I'm like, and I said, "Oh, Your Honor." And he goes, No, John, relax.
From Ohio.
No, John Dallas from Savannah. So it was interesting. You never know who you're sitting next to.
No, you don't. You don't know about people. Well, we don't go around saying, "Hey, I'm a lawyer."
Yeah.
Forget it.
No, not these days.
Yeah. You want me to say I was a judge?
Huh?
I was a judge.
Yeah, I remember you were
the first woman to serve as a judge in Broward County.
Really?
But we had municipal judges. I was appointed by the mayor of Wilton Manors. And in 1964, I served for 10 years. It was a lot of fun. It was a great thing for attorneys to be municipal judges, because it gave you a different aspect of what is going on. Well, okay, you're sitting there as a judge. Now, which one is lying? Or which one isn't telling the whole truth? And it gives you just a different look at things, and very, very interesting and very good. I thought it would be great experience. But what happened was, in 1974, they passed a bill that created the county court. And the county court took over what the municipal courts did. And they sold a bill of goods to the people. They sold they're so gullible. The people are so gullible, you know, to these politicians. They told them that, okay, you don't, well, we got paid very little, I might say, and only when we served. The municipal courts took care of all the traffic cases and also the misdemeanors and you know, low-priced things. Um, I also was in Oakland Park too, so I had Kmart, and I used to have all of the thievery there. But you do good things too, because I had a young man and his young boy and his mother came in, and they were going to plead guilty because he was charged with stealing a shoe. And I asked him, you know, what happened. You know, he was trying on shoes. His mother had him trying on shoes, so he tried on the shoe, a shoe. But his mother went outside, so he went to find his mother to show her the shoe. So they caught the boy, and they charged him with stealing the shoe.
One shoe.
So they were going to plead guilty. I said, I spent some time. I'm finally convinced the mother not to plead guilty and to come back for the trial. And they did. And I didn't come before me, I came before the other judge. And so I asked about it. He was found not guilty. How can you be found guilty of stealing one shoe? He had 2 feet. You know, listen to the boy. You know, he would have had a record if he was found guilty. So I felt I did some good there. But you had to watch out, you know, how you treat the first one, the last one, they all listen to how you're going to treat them, how much they're going to get away with. But it was good exercise. But because they created the county courts, the municipal courts, whatever, they told the people you wouldn't have to pay the judges anymore. They would all be handled. They would be handled by the state. The state would take care of the judges, and these would have greater thing. So what happened is they had to hire the judges at nice salary. I wish I had it. A nice salary, and they had retirement later on. They had to have a secretary. They had to have a somebody from the sheriff's department there, somebody from the courts. They had people from the court report. So they had a lot of other expenses, and but so they did away with us, 1974. So
you know, they essentially brought that back for the traffic courts. They brought that back with the magistrate system.
Yeah, sure.
And they don't pay the attorneys much, and only when they appear.
Right.
The more things change,
yeah,
the more they stay the same.
Well, you think that they had to build new buildings because they had to have the courtroom, you got to have the judges' quarters, you got to have this and that and everything else. So, you know, but it was something that had to be. Eventually, it had to be. Look at it now. You know, it's they give it more authority in the county court.
Excuse me? I didn't hear that last part.
They have more authority
in
the county small claims court. Small claims court was something else.
Still is. You must have seen this part of Florida, Broward County, change over the years.
Yeah. When I came, the old courthouse was there on the corner of 3rd Avenue and 6th Street. And that was there. There's a picture of it, I think, across the street. And that was operational. And we practiced there. And also the new courthouse. That was the central building. And everything was in there. The whole county government was in there. And all of the offices, you know, the election office, the property appraiser, everybody was in that one building. And what stunned me, because I came from New York and things were different up there, is in the off the lobby area where they had the restrooms, they had the mark, white, black. Same thing with water fountains, white and black. And the only people of color that were working in the courthouse were people who did the cleaning. And when Bob Markham got elected as property appraiser in 19, these dates really gonna go. His son got elected later. It would have to be 1964, 65. Bob had run before, and he ran again. He got elected. I mean, we probably elected maybe two Republicans, and he got elected, and he went and took over his office in that same building. And the guy who was in there before him had really done away with a lot of the records. But anyway, he worked in there. He died when he was in office. And anyway, he hired the first man of color to work in there, not cleaning, but to actually work in the building. And he had worked cleaning in the building before that. So that was the first big step. And then we had the old judge. Okay, help me with my memory. The street is called Judge something, 6th Street.
Oh.
His son became a judge.
That doesn't help.
No, it doesn't. But he was a quite elderly judge. And they had him in there, and I guess they didn't trust him with the rest of the things, so they put him in charge of divorces to handle the black divorces. Things were very...
They had segregated dockets?
No, but they would know when it's filed, which way they were. And he handled those. It was different.
Sounds like, yeah. Seems strange. But
it was different. A lot of things. But you walk from the old building, if you went up on the second floor, and you could cross over to the new building. But when you did that, you would go past the jail, because the jail was there in that building, in the old courthouse. It wasn't a very big jail. You walk. We didn't have that many people. When you walked across there, you get all the calls, from the guys in there. So it was interesting. Then they made the lobby. They put the blind people in charge of the... You wouldn't have remembered that, because that was after you.
The concessions?
They had a soda bar, coffee bar, and sold sandwiches and snacks things, and they sold that. I was sorry that they tore that building down. I really was sorry. They should have kept it.
The original?
The original. Even if they kept the part with the dome and cut off the rest of it, they should have kept it. I love to see the old things. I really do.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of the minimalist modern style.
No.
Or someone's been smoking something architecture.
My first office was in the Suite building. Now, where the Suite building is, it's not there anymore. It was on Andrews Avenue, north of the Andrews Avenue Bridge, on the west side of the street. It was on the corner of I don't know what that would be, but it led to in the back. Now it's whatever they call it. Anyway, and there was a restaurant back there that all the high mucky mucks used to go. You could go there. They had a round table where all these local big shots would, the guys would be,
Mhm.
and have lunch there. You didn't see too many women. You know, there were no women attorneys. I think I was probably around in Fort Lauderdale and Hollywood. I was probably about the sixth woman practicing law in Broward County, and
Where'd you go to law school?
St. John's University in New York, School of Law, and there was Mildred Ackerman. She became a small claims court judge. She's another one. Don't get me into that one.
Okay. Well, we're here to talk about the AHEPA and the daughters.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I went to practice with Ernie Alexis, who's another attorney. He was from Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and he and I went into, whether you call it a partnership or what. Everything was very informal, and that about the sixth, there were 3 women attorneys in Hollywood. There was another woman up here. Her name was Smith, and she ran for Congress against Rogers. I'm talking about the 50s, and she almost beat him. She almost beat him. 1968 elections were big elections for us Republicans here. We got Jane Carroll elected. That campaigns were so different. It was so different. The Republican Executive Committee had this man that they wanted to run. I said, you can't run a man for the job. I said, Easter Lily Gates has been the election supervisor from day one. I said, how, they expect a woman to be in there. How are you going to have a man run for the job? Well, he lost to Jane Carroll. So anyway, I said, let me think about somebody who could run. And I thought about Jane because, you know, people from from all factions within the party seemed to like her and everything. And so I went to our group and I said, how about Jane Carroll? She'd be a good candidate. And she had been a teacher, and, we didn't know how much the job paid. We didn't know what the job entailed. We didn't know what she was supposed to do. We didn't know anything about the job. So we decided, well, we'll run Jane. Who's going to tell her? We got the woman, we got a mutual friend to be the treasurer. We raised money. I put my money up. We collected money from the group. We got enough money, to pay for whatever had to, for the campaign. And we went to Jane and we said, Jane, we got an offer you can't refuse. And we told her what it was. And she and her husband, they agreed, and she ran for office. She got elected, and we had to learn everything. Anyway.
So how long was she supervisor of elections?
Until they had that la-di-da come in. 2000.
Oh, wow. That's a long stretch.
Yeah. But but the new thinking was coming in. It was, Kerry was running that time. Was he running around that time? That was when we had that the Bush Kerry thing.
Oh, yes.
And then we got that.
So she lasted through Bush Gore.
And we got that one that went around. Hello, how everything? She spent $1 million to redo the office. Her office, not the whole office.
Was that Oliphant?
Huh?
Oliphant?
Yes. Who paid people for the moving that they never did.
Oh, right. Okay.
She should have been in jail.
Well, the governor removed her. The governor removed her.
Yeah. That didn't bring back the money. She was. Anyway.
All right.
That's how it goes. Come on, go home.
Yeah, I'll let you get going too. Thank you.
Almost 4:30. It's 4:30. I don't know. What time do you have now?
4:38. We've been at this for about 3 hours.
Oh, God.
Sorry.
I'm wiped out. You're wiped out.